One of the best parts about wall printing is the fact that it's a blue ocean, meaning it is a wide open market. Virtually no one is in this space yet. Even the people who have adopted it are like 1% of the 1%. But being a blue ocean, it's still an ocean. It still has its challenges. You have to pick a direction. You have to make sure you know where you're going. And in order to be effective, you have to have a game plan. That's why the first step, if you're thinking about getting into this industry, is getting market validation for the idea. So get used to the pitch. It's not like plumbing. It's not like being a mechanic. And there's no aspect of this that has sort of the flat tire where they need to have it done right now, which means you have a huge part of your sales cycle that's going to be fixated on education and creating a sense of need that they have to close tomorrow. So the way that we typically do that in our business is we offer things such as a discount if it's ready by next Thursday, the idea that we're starting a big job, we have time now, we may not have time later, small little coaxes that you can do with your customer to give them a reason to act today, as opposed to putting it off till after the long weekend or whatever reason they may have. So Blue Ocean's fantastic. It's probably the most exciting part of this business is the newness of it. For anybody coming into it, I hear that consistently on the calls. Wow, isn't this great? Like nobody's really doing it. I think there is a common question as to why, if this technology exists, why haven't I seen it? If you watched our other podcasts or our story and how we got involved, a large part of it had to do with consistency with the machine, but also a honing in of the sales process itself. So what we've noticed as we've gone forward with this is the idea that you would start small and grow it big is significantly harder. Okay. So I've had this question come up quite a few times. Should I start with a cheaper machine? Maybe not as fast, and I could start with smaller jobs, build it up, and then we get to the larger stuff. And here's why I would disagree with that. Again, I understand it, and power to you if that's the way that you want to go. The reason why I think it can be a challenge is, let's say that you buy a $20,000 machine, right? Significantly less expensive than our $50,000 machine. Understood. The math is very straightforward on that part. Where I think it gets interesting is, okay, so you buy the machine for $20,000. How many jobs do you need to put together to get back on the ROI? So let's say it's 10 to 20, $1,000 to $2,000 jobs. That's a lot of work. $1,000 to $2,000 jobs with a slower machine, with a learning curve built into it. That will take a significant amount of time just to get yourself back to where you were before you purchased the machine. Now, of course, you'll learn a lot in the way as you go, but in a lot of ways, you're going to learn the wrong lessons. A $1,000 to $2,000 job with a cheaper machine isn't the same thing as a 5 or 6 figure job with our enterprise level model. Those are kind of different. Sort of think of it this way, like starting a landscaping business with a push mower in your neighborhood versus starting with some commercial grade equipment and going after larger stuff. You can see that if you have a slower, less reliable machine, your issue is that you're going to look at the, sports complex with 50 fields where it's a nice payday, but like in order to accomplish that, you're going to have to use a push mower. You will feel a daunting feeling when you go to execute the work because it's not really catered to that style of work. By contrast, the enterprise level machine allows you to go after the big scope, complete it successfully, use it to leverage more stuff. The bigger the job you get with our machine, the better it's going to be. So is a blue ocean fantastic? Yes. The problem is, like, if you just to extend, maybe beat this metaphor to death, right, is the idea that like you can go anywhere, you can kind of do anything, but it is an ocean. There's a lot of ways that you can kind of mess it up as you go. And that's a big part of the reason why we set up the Wallprint Academy, why we put such an emphasis on trying to help people launch their business and remaining a business focus. And I think that that's really kind of important. One thing we've noticed, we've got many machines out there, over 10 machines out there in the market. A lot of our operators started the sales cycle while they were waiting for their machine and are jumping right into job scopes that are 5 figures. That's been a consistent theme with our operators that are now currently using the G6 to print. But what we're really finding is that the people that are going to be successful are the ones that treat this like a business. We really want business operators. The actual functionality of the machine should be fairly straightforward to get there. But how to position it in the job scope, that's really where you separate the people that are going to be able to scale from the people that aren't. And the reason I say that, and again, this is coming from several weeks of training people and whatnot. What we've noticed is that, like, what we really want to tie together for people is this understanding that the successful execution execution of a job starts from the sales point of view. So it starts with benchmarking the expectation for the customer. Then you get into things like design. So for instance, we had a job with a major client. It was a very large wall, 130 feet by 30 feet. The way that we broke up the artwork led to a successful install. So breaking it, instead of trying to do that all in one go, we broke it into 18 smaller segments so that it was easier for us to get to site, get the artwork set up. We had save points with every time we finished one of those segments. We didn't have to go back and restart. Not the least of which, like, where are you going to get an image and what computer are you going to run this image on that's that big, right? So you're going to hit limitations if you try to do it. That was directly as a result of us guiding the customer towards a solution that we knew that we could provide, right? So that started with a sale, an expectation, what it was going to cost, how the process was going to have to go. A big part of that particular job was making sure they understood that in order for us to get to a completion, obviously we needed them to sign off on the artwork. We call that the gap. If you watch other podcasts, you'll know they can love you. They can think the technology is great. They really want to use it. But how long does it take you to get ink on the wall? Like, they have to make up their mind that, like, yes, this graphic here is great. So we started all that expectation with the customer in the sales cycle, that in order to meet the deadline and in order to meet the price they wanted, we needed the following things done. That's a really important aspect of what it is we try to teach our operators and throughout our courses, is like, you have to benchmark the expectation for them in order to be successful on site. The difference between well set up, well executed with an understanding of what it's going to take, more of a collaboration, versus not, is night and day. You will find it is significantly easier to work with the customer to find the solution that they want that works for what their space is, right? The next phase immediately on that is making sure the artwork works for what you're doing. So never, a good example, here's a cardinal rule: never send a client a rendering or an example of what you're doing that you can't accomplish with the printer. Seems like kind of common sense, but like, that's an important aspect to realize, is like, you can do that with everything. Part of the reason we love owning the design and owning the design process when we go to do jobs is this idea that we can get ahead of anything that we think is going to be a problem. For example, trying to go floor to ceiling or inside corner to inside corner, where you don't factor in the margins. A great example of something that can be overlooked, and you'll get to a position where it's like, well, shoot, we can't do that. That's not a conversation you want to have with your customer. By contrast, if you just intelligently show them the idea, right? So pick things that still look really good, but factor in all the various nuances that come with wall printing to make it simpler, to make it so that it can be successful. It makes a huge difference when you actually go to site and print. And if you look at what we're doing with the Wall Print Academy, with our operator group, where we're growing and how we're scaling, job scope is the future of wall printing. Understanding how to do sale to design to execution is the entire business. That's the three pillars of the whole business. So yes, the machine's important. But the machine cannot outweigh the sales effort and the design effort. And that's a big part of the reason why we don't like to recommend less expensive machines, or machines that are catered to a smaller market. How you specify it, how you go in, and what your earning potential is with those smaller jobs is not the same thing as what we're finding over here. And if we had to pick where we're going to go in this blue ocean, again, to beat this metaphor to death, like, we'd like to go on the main shipping lanes and the places where we know the execution is going to work well, where it's worth the whole effort of what we're doing. So that's a quick little tip for you. We've seen that question come in all the time. Would love to give advice. Feel free to follow, hit that link. Absolutely. Give us a call if you have any interest in working with us in the Wall Print Academy. If you have questions about the technology, we're always here to help.